Bitcoin hits a fresh all-time high as an Australian super fund buys Bitcoin for the first time. We cover all this right now in the Collective Shift weekly recap, actionable insights, and a breakdown into the crypto market, all in under 30 minutes. Nick, we've improvised here with a tech setup, but look, it's one of the things that has gone wrong in a week where it's all been up for crypto.
Yeah, exactly. A bit of technical difficulties, but that's not going to let us stop us from talking about Bitcoin again, finally above 100,000. I don't think we're ever going to get sick of seeing these new all-time highs, and Bitcoin firmly trade above this $100,000 key resistance level. So a lot to really unpack. I'm really looking forward to getting into the news about first superannuation fund to buy some Bitcoin. A lot of talk on the ETF front, but perhaps we can start off with a bit of a market update.
Yeah, so I got my screen up here, and we can see Bitcoin. I have been surprised to see staying around that $100,000 mark. You know, I expected once we broke through it the first time to be some resistance, and if we broke through it, I thought we would really soar through it, but that wasn't the case. But seeing Bitcoin maintain in six-figure territory, you could not ask for a better result there. And here we are at the time of recording, more or less at an all-time high of $106,500 US. ETH is also above 4,000. That's notable. And other notable that we've been talking about recently, Solana just continues to meander along while the attention goes back to the majors, such as the ones I've mentioned. So over the past 30 days, they're notable that Solana is actually down while ETH is up 30%, BTC up 18%. So we might get into that a bit, but Solana has had quite the run from the lows. So it has taken a bit of a pause. But what is at all-time highs, not just Bitcoin's price, but there are a number of metrics. Importantly, one that we love tracking here at Collective Shift is the stablecoin supply. That surpassed 200 billion in on-chain, the supply of US dollar stablecoins, which has never happened before. I think 2021, we might have peaked at, about 170 billion or so. But to see it above 200, I sort of have to pinch myself a bit there to see that figure for stablecoins.
That was one of my, 2024 predictions. That did work out. I anticipated we're going to hit a new all-time high for stablecoins, and I'm not sure where we're about to put that. That 200 billion figure was, I think, what a lot of people were looking forward to, and to see it reach, now in December, really exciting. I'm really looking forward to the world where we see 500 billion stablecoins, 1 trillion. I've seen Circle's CEO and founder, he talked about how the goal is just to get 1 trillion of stablecoins out there into the market. So almost feels like we're still early days for stablecoins, but in reality, 200 billion, huge amount of value coming into the system.
Yeah, for sure. I think next year is shaping up a really big one for stablecoins yet again, with some news coming out recently. But we'll move on to what has been driving this price action. One of the variables, of course, has been the demand for these ETFs. Ethereum in particular really awakening after a few months of not doing much really.
Yeah, we've seen Bitcoin's inflows really dominate the news headlines. It's no secret the amount of capital that was flowing into these products. But Ethereum got off to a slow start, but has now started to see a huge amount of inflows to a lot of different ETF, ETP, all these sort of investment products. So hugely encouraging signs for Ethereum. One that I'm hoping we start to see accelerate even more into 2025, especially as we perhaps see more staking, start to go into these products, which just makes them more attractive, because at the end of the day, you are losing out a lot of yield compounded over a longer period of time by not including these spot ETF products. So really excited to see here. I think it was about $2 billion flowed into these products, into these ETFs in the past 10 days. So huge amount of inflows, and really encouraged to see this, and hopefully we continuation into next year.
Yeah, for sure. And all the while, the Bitcoin ETF continues to see really strong levels of demand, which we've gotten used to, which is just shows how lucky, and how fortunate we are to have such a hot product that's in demand. But then the Ethereum one, of course, getting a lot more news now that we're used to those strong inflows for Bitcoin, of course. In terms of other adoption news that was potential, recently we talked about the Microsoft proposal that was coming up in terms of Microsoft's shareholders and board voting on whether to start to view Bitcoin as a potential investment for diversifying their treasury. That vote, as we sort of explained, and as you explained last week, Nick, didn't go through, but we saw Saylor at least try to pitch the value prop for Bitcoin. But it looks like some other companies are also having a shot.
Yeah, so this is something that we were pretty forthright about. Microsoft board themselves said that they, encourage everyone to vote against it. So no big surprise here that, less than 1% voted in favor of this proposal. But Amazon now is probably going to be the next big company with a similar shareholder vote that's coming up, I think, in the next week or so. That one will be a big deal. Again, I'll be very surprised to see Amazon board and the shareholders there vote in favor. Although we're seeing more countries such as, Russia and Japan, some lawmakers start to float the idea of putting this to their, electorate and to the Congress or whatever political system they hold. So we're starting to see more and more people talk about this, even at the nation state level. So Amazon, at least it's going to generate some nice news headlines. Don't know if Saylor is going to make an appearance for this one.
Yeah, we'll see. We also had the release last week by Electric Capital of the sort of industry standard for our annual developer reports. So a venture capital firm, Electric Capital, sort of crunches all the numbers every year and releases, trends happening in the crypto development space. There was a lot of notables, as always. We'll link to the actual report itself in the show notes. And as I go up on my screen here, the actual report itself. One big takeaway, I've seen people, discussing is it was just yet reaffirming Solana's ground that it's made in 2024, with the number of developers, rising very strongly, getting towards 80% or so growth year over year. Which is very encouraging to see. Nearly 8,000 new developers joining the Solana ecosystem as well was very notable. But I think Ethereum still dominating other blockchains was something that did, I suppose, surprise a number of people who perhaps have written off ETH too prematurely.
Yeah, it's the thing that I always come back to, and it's probably one of the highest signal metrics really to see who is developing on these chains. Ethereum, I think they call it the Ethereum X ecosystem. So like Optimism, Arbitrum, all these other chains inside Ethereum remains extremely high for developer activity, especially I think blockchains or, layer 2 networks like Base, was a big winner out of this, was even leading, I think, some different continents in terms of top blockchains that they're building on. So huge amount of developers. And this is just so important because it's kind of a precursor to a lot of apps to be built yet, because not everything is really developed yet. A lot of these things are being built on chain. So when we see where the devs are building, where the attention is, then we'll start to see, flow and effects via, the applications and all these services that finally come to market. And it's a big deal because whoever has the most developers, just has the biggest stranglehold on being able to build really good things on the chain and respond to users. So huge, I think, leading indicator really. So hopefully we start to see a lot of these results come here for Ethereum. A couple of my other takeaways really was that Solana was leading in, I think, some Asian markets in terms of beating Ethereum out for total developers. I think there was certain segments and even places like India where I think Solana's adoption matched Ethereum. So that was the big takeaway here. Solana and Ethereum definitely number 1 and 2. I was surprised to see some other ecosystems such as ICP, the Internet Computer. They come out and ranked quite high, that I was really shocked to see because I'm not really seeing much of the value on chain flow to that ecosystem. So one that kind of shocked me. And another thing I learned here too, Matt, was that they had very unique points where they would label active addresses. So I think they would actually exclude, I think it was about new addresses that had only one transaction but less than $1 from the active address count for active addresses.
Okay.
Because they also had a bit about address uptake on the chain. This had a bit of an impact because if we're considering that if you did 2 transactions and more than $3, you would have been counted in some of these metrics. So probably take these with a grain of salt because at the end of the day, they draw their own lines in the sands, but something to keep in mind when you see these reports.
Yeah, one for me that stood out too was just the overall decline. I think in total developers, I think was down 7% since the end of last year, which yeah, it wasn't overly surprising, but also I think just reaffirmed how much crypto took a hit after the FTX sort of collapse and still is recovering. Notably there, this is only tracking open source sort of GitHub repos and things like that. The closed source side of things, so for example, Coinbase's army of developers, they're not counted in this data. So it's sort of, it's a big unknown of how much the closed source side of thing is increasing or decreasing in the, I guess, overall crypto development. So it's not a measure of overall crypto development, but it's certainly like a very high signal metric here on report that Electric Capital produces.
And just a final one there is, there's such an important metrics to watch, because it's not only applications that are built, but all the tooling and all the support that then comes with building on that chain when you're creating on something like a Solana or Ethereum. And that really cannot be discounted enough. And that's what a lot of new chains struggle with, especially if they have like a new language that they're building with and they've got to really start from scratch. That's a huge competitive advantage that Solana and Ethereum have over the rest of the crypto ecosystem in terms of developers and tooling. And probably the biggest news item of the week was a lot of discussion around quantum computing.
For work, yeah.
Essentially, Google, they released something called Willow, which was a major milestone in its quest to creating quantum computing. These are just essentially new types of computers that are being created that can do enormous more computations than traditional computers. And it can solve some of the hardest problems that traditional supercomputers would take in a matter of seconds. So this, of course, now opens the door for things like Bitcoin and standard encryption, which really guards the Bitcoin blockchain. But it also does a lot of, pretty much guards standard encryption, the entire banking information system that we have across the globe. So a lot of people concerned, will this have an impact on Bitcoin? If so, when will it become an issue? I'm not sure your thoughts on this one, Matt, but of course we've got to caveat this by saying that it doesn't look like it's going to be an immediate short-term concern, just because the necessary, I think, advancement in quantum computing still needs to take a few more leaps forward for it to really break the Bitcoin or SHA encryption method. For me personally, if I stand to say, hey, if quantum computing is here and that's something that is a real reality that we have to contend with, we do know that we can upgrade these through kind of quantum resistance upgrades for Bitcoin or any other blockchain you have. You can just hard fork them and kind of install better security measures to combat this threat. And then again, I come back to the method that if this encryption is totally now able to be broken, we've got a lot of problems in society, from nuclear codes to traditional banking infrastructure, which all is secured by similar encryption algorithms that Bitcoin is encrypted with. So a lot to unpack here, Matt. Maybe start off, is this actually on the roadmap for developers? We were just talking before on some podcasts, but it doesn't look like Bitcoin Core is too concerned in the immediate short term.
Yeah, they've got like a lot of different blockchains like already have quantum resistant, what they claim to be quantum resistant, hashing algorithms and whatnot. And then you've also got proof of work, or Bitcoin. The Bitcoin blockchain itself is, I think, the one people worry about the most with quantum computing, just because of how slow, almost by design, how slow the development cycle is for Bitcoin. That's almost the beauty of it in a way. But yeah, there are some concerns I have seen around the industry, I suppose, the lack of preparedness among the Bitcoin core developers for a future solution in the event where, as you were saying, quantum computing sort of sneaks up on a lot more accelerated than maybe everyone's expectations, and all of a sudden there's a lot more orders of magnitude powerful quantum computing that no one thought was coming anytime soon. If that were to come, it seems like Bitcoin, at least plans put in place to make those upgrades, which you said, is possible. It's sort of like always a push and pull, really. Like, I think it's just the preparedness is something that almost concerns some people throughout last week, but absolutely in the short term, and the medium term, to be honest, like there really isn't anything to worry about in terms of like the whole crypto market's outlook from something like quantum computing. So it's always a big scary thing, but I guess take it on our word, I suppose, that it's not anything to worry about.
Plus, you have to remember how big the market cap for Bitcoin is and the amount of miners' interests that are invested in Bitcoin itself, which creates a huge game theory of, hey, there's actually when it looks like it's in sight, then you would imagine that everyone, there's so much capital and risk, is incentivized to quickly upgrade and push forward these hard forks and upgrades for Bitcoin. That's the thing I come back to, and
100%.
I have no doubt that the community is going to come together for this one. Maybe a little novel thing here though is like Satoshi's coins. So a unique property of this is that it was a very early deployment in some of this early wallet infrastructure and the way that these keys were housed, that the newer wallets don't have to deal with this. But even if you upgrade Bitcoin itself, it looks like that it may be Satoshi's coins back in the day may actually be a risk in a way, because they would have to be moved to these, quantum proof addresses or whatnot. So that's going to be an interesting one. So we may actually have fundamental news whether he or they are alive or not, because if they don't move them, then that's a good signal that, hey, maybe they're past and, we don't have to worry about this anymore. But, one I'm really fascinated to unpack, will we see a gold rush for his coins at a quantum computing age? I don't know. That could be a fun podcast in 2030.
Yeah. No, it's certainly a possibility. Like getting a lot of, it unlocked a lot of conversations, like this whole Google news with Willow last week, and that was one for sure. Other big news that actually, in my opinion, was really important for pushing Bitcoin to new all-time highs in the past few days was confirmation that what had been sort of speculated on and now is being made official is that MicroStrategy is now in the Nasdaq 100. So as the name implies, 100 most valuable companies that are in that whole Nasdaq sort of stock market or stock index. And now it's also part of the QQQ, which is the ticker for Nasdaq 100. It's in the ETF. So this is like really big news because essentially it's a bit of legitimacy for the broader crypto space, but more importantly, you actually got like buy side, and sell side potentially, like actual tangible impacts on the demand for MicroStrategy stock, where a bunch of ETFs around the world that have the QQQ or just exposure to Nasdaq are now, in a sense, either indirectly or directly forced to purchase MicroStrategy stocks. And as we know, we've been covering, the whole market has been aware of MicroStrategy's heavy bid for Bitcoin, buying it and sort of taking advantage of that difference in the valuation of their company versus sort of the fair value, to simplify it. So if that bid keeps coming now for MicroStrategy, now they're in the index, there are people now saying that, hey, MicroStrategy now could actually be positioned to buy even more Bitcoin than what they previously were committing to. So it works it can work in the opposite way, but maybe that's a discussion for another day. It's not quite working in the opposite way, but certainly I think the reason why we saw this latest rally, I can attribute a lot of that to this scenario where on Monday it became effective, I believe. Oh no, December 23.
December 23, yeah. The thing that really excites me about this is, hey, a lot of people who maybe don't even like Bitcoin or realize that they're going to be holding Bitcoin exposure will be, because a lot of people just invest via these large index funds and like the Nasdaq 100, and who knows how long it is until like things like the S&P 500 starts to work its way into. So a lot of people may be holding Bitcoin now in a way that they never thought they would.
Yeah, definitely. We also saw, relatedly, first for Australia in terms of just a retail super fund. So one of the largest ones here in AMP, investing in actual spot, the Bitcoin, the physical Bitcoin itself.
This is awesome to see. And one that is probably going to be a trend that will be continuing, because the high level here is AMP, which is a large Australian super fund. They're kind of looking at the position, hey, this Bitcoin thing, it's a legitimate asset class now, and we're kind of doing ourselves a disservice by not allocating even a small percentage to it. So they've only allocated a 0.05%. So that's far way away from the 1 to 3% that some other investors like BlackRock or Fidelity will start to be advising their clients. So they're dipping their toes in the water very small, but I think the signal it sends is quite profound. The senior portfolio manager said something along the lines of, like, quote, we generally thought that even though crypto is risky, new, and not yet fully proven, that it has become too big and its potential was too great to continue to ignore. So that was a huge quote that I really resonated with. And I think, although $27 million when they first invested, and that was back, I think, in October. So they've already realized about a 60% gain on that. This is a huge signal that it's probably going to send to other superannuation funds, to just a sentiment that I think a lot of the broader ecosystem is feeling, and probably even traditional financial advisors, that, hey, it's actually doing a disservice to our investors and our, customers by totally ignoring cryptocurrency, because they're losing out on potential gains. And, especially now, other superannuation companies may be looking to it and maybe start to be forced to adopt a similar strategy, even if it's a small one.
Yeah, really, really big news there. And I think what we look back at as a watershed moment, yet another highlight for 2024. I think the whole Get Off Zero sort of campaign that, a lot of early Bitcoiners pushed, or even for the institutional adoption, the whole idea of getting off zero. In other words, just putting 5 basis points or 50 basis points into like Bitcoin can be more than sufficient. And then you put that around the globe, and absolutely would result in Bitcoin becoming established, which it certainly is. So in terms of other sort of purchases throughout the week, we saw World Liberty Financial. We haven't talked about them in a while. They've popped up again.
Yeah, they made real big headlines because their associated treasury address has started buying a lot of Link. So that made Link hit, I think, about 2021 highs, and saw quite a large run up in price. So this is about, I think, $1 million worth of Link. So it wasn't, tens of millions of dollars by any stretch of the imagination, but does send the signal that, hey, one of the biggest associated cryptocurrencies with the president, or the soon-to-be president of the United States, is buying Link. I know it's also been associated with things like Aave, and this has caused Aave and Link to have quite large price run-ups in the last few weeks. So huge deal here, and I wonder, what are your bets on the next cryptocurrency they're buying?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. They've all the low-hanging fruit, I suppose, in the cryptocurrencies they were seemingly associated with have now been purchased. So yeah, it would almost be a case, if they make more partnerships with other protocols in the space, are they going to follow through with buying their native token? If the trends continue, you would expect them to. So that might be a narrative or a thing people are looking for in and of itself, like signs of who World Liberty Financial will partner with next. And just a reminder, if anyone who hasn't heard of this project before, it was really just a DeFi project. That's still, from my understanding, is yet to actually launch itself. And it's as we were talking about before, it's seen as like the Trump family's project, even though legally they're have nothing to do with it. But it certainly has been now known as the World Liberty Financial. A lot of people don't even know the project's name. They just know it's Trump's DeFi project.
Essentially, they're just creating front ends to better use DeFi.
Yeah.
DeFi is tough and hard to use. They're trying to make it nice, shiny, and easy to use.
Yeah. So that will almost certainly continue to pop up in the news throughout 2025, that project there. In terms of altcoin news, there's actually a lot. I was surprised. I would have said altcoin news would be rather quiet this time of year, but I was surprised to see a lot of big news coming through. The first one could be affecting one of the biggest cryptocurrencies in the market, which we sort of hinted at the start of this episode.
Yeah, we've got a lot of positive altcoin updates. This is probably a negative one because Pump.Fun, which is the biggest marketplace and launchpad for meme coins and even tokens more broadly, they've actually been restricted by authorities in the UK. And I even saw the UK was clamping down on a couple of other cryptocurrency, services like dApps in the last couple of days. Huge deal here because Solana actually at its peak in the last, I think, couple of weeks, did something like 80% of its DEX volumes were generated through Pump.Fun and meme coins. So a lot of activity is generated there. If we continue to see Pump.Fun get restricted in other jurisdictions, maybe not in the US now that we've got a more favorable regulatory environment, these are some questions over Solana. It's the one thing I've always wanted to see from Solana is try to diversify that away from just a meme coin speculation and more fundamental utility and transactions outside of trading, dog and cat coins, with each other. huge deal here, but Pump.Fun kind of struggled as well when they ended their live streams, because I think their total tokens launch really halved after live streams was disabled. So who knows? I think Pump.Fun should tokenize next year too. That's what I'm looking forward to being one of the bigger token launches in 2025.
Yeah, it's really well put. And on that Solana use case, I think that honestly, without going on for too long, I think that is one of the big things for 2025 to look for Solana. I know AI, they're starting to eat into that market. They're probably competing the most with Base, and then there's some specialized AI blockchains sort of coming out. But they've got the likes of AI 16Z, Cerebro, sort of being the pillars or starting to sort of get this Solana AI agent ecosystem up and going. There's a big Solana AI hackathon going on at the moment. So we may see some innovation coming out of there. And Deepin is another one we've seen get some nice momentum on Solana, where Deepin is sort of becoming synonymous with Solana. So there's hope there, but to your point, at the moment, reality is they're still heavily reliant on meme coin speculation. So yeah, we'll see what comes of that and if that continues heading into next year. On the Solana ecosystem, one of the biggest, most well-known projects, Jupiter, they have now confirmed that they are going ahead with their airdrops in the next 2 Januaries. They've confirmed the same number of tokens will be airdropped in January 2025 and January 2026, and then they'll sort of reassess what happens after that. But I believe it was 700 million Jupe tokens are going to be airdropped in a month's time, more or less. And then another 700 million in January 2026. So I would dare say that they will my speculation is Jupiter will reward people who have been consistently using their different features throughout this year. So they've got their dollar cost averaging feature, they've got their perps platform, which cops criticism for having a lot of fees, so could almost just be like a rebate, this airdrop in a sense. And they've got various other products. So my bet is that Jupiter will reward addresses who have interacted with all the different products Jupiter's been trying to expand into in this year.
Yeah, I think a big month for Jupiter. They've also got that conference coming up.
Yes.
Really keen to see what alpha gets leaked there, and even new products that they're going to announce in the coming month. One I was actually shocked about in the recent couple of days was Avalanche. I saw they raised $250 million in a private, I think, locked token sale. And this was led by investors like Galaxy Digital, Dragonfly, Parify Capital. So a lot of the biggest VCs in the space. And this is really ahead of its new major upgrade that's coming. I think
it just was today.
Yeah, so today released, which was Avalanche 9000. And this really tried to make, I think, creating and deploying on Avalanche, I think 90 to 99% cheaper. So kind of similar maybe what we saw with Ethereum with its upgrade, really, if we're thinking of comparables here. So huge amount of capital. And I even saw that this was on top of a large treasury they had in previous token sales. So they're probably one of the most well-capitalized cryptocurrency protocols out there. I would argue top 5 in terms of total capital behind it now with this $250 million raise.
Yeah, certainly. And they're really trying, you can tell with their language, they're trying to get rid of that language of like subnets and whatnot, which was, I think, very confusing for a lot of people. And now they're just trying to word it as just there's other layer 1 chains being launched. So in a sense, a bit like Cosmos, really. And this may be worth bookmarking, Nick, and we may come back to this next December. They're saying they have more than 500 layer 1 chains in development at the moment. Maybe we'll check up on that in 12 months' time and see how many of them went live. Hopefully, the majority of them, and Avalanche, is really set up for success. But yeah, as we've been saying throughout this year, they've sort of lagged a bit behind. They've sort of lost touch with the likes of Solana, definitely, and all the while we've seen Sui come up, and then also the likes of Base and other Ethereum L2s also competing very fiercely with Avalanche. So a really big milestone here for Avalanche. We'll see if momentum can follow through.
Cool. I'm not sure we can smash through a couple of these other. Quite a big week for altcoin news. As you said, we're anticipating maybe a quiet Christmas period. But
honestly,
these projects are making they're striking while the iron's hot, as they say.
Yes, absolutely.
And just keep going with this, favorable environment that we have in cryptocurrency at the moment. Ethena launched a new stable coin product. I think it was UST NFTB.
Yeah.
And so this was initially backed by the BlackRock USD. Was it like their build partnership with Securitize?
Yeah.
So huge partnership on that end, and Ethena probably becoming really the leader in this space. And one I'm really excited to see how they go in 2025. I think we spoke about it last week, just because it's a, offering stablecoin yield, something that isn't really as much of a thing these days. But I think that's going to rapidly change into next year. And you were with the Near protocol, some alpha, I think.
Let's see what comes of it. Yeah, I guess. Well, at the time this comes out, we can all, as an audience and us too, we can see what this announcement actually was. But this is when you're in a bull market.
It's dropping dates.
And the last one here, Cosmos. This is actually very important, I suppose, when you're looking at the future of Cosmos. They're really in a rut at the moment. So, look, whatever these series of announcements are throughout this week, that in my opinion will be a really big variable of how they go in 2025. The value accrual for Atom has been a long-standing criticism of Cosmos, so it looks like they're going to address that at once in December 17th as well, and then some other announcements there. I think they acquired someone last week.
They quite Skip protocol.
Yes.
So that was one of the biggest builders that was distracting like MEV on
that's
in the Cosmos ecosystem.
Yeah.
And then they also, I think, rebranded the Interchain Foundation in a different way. So they're looking to package everything together and make or break for Cosmos in 2025.
Yeah. No, for sure. And then, so a busy week ahead with some of the altcoin announcements that we've just shown there. I'm also looking, I think the Federal Reserve, the interest rate, they've got their last meeting for the year. That is happening throughout this week. And the market's actually anticipating almost certainly at this stage that they'll cut by 25 basis points. So if that does not happen, expect a lot of volatility. But for me this week, I'm really looking forward to Pudgy Penguins releasing their Pudge token. I like that's a fun ticker to say, Pudge.
It is.
So we'll see how that goes, if they can execute it well, notably on the Solana blockchain. And then they will be expanding that Pudge token to other Ethereum blockchains as well as Abstract, which they're planning to launch on mainnet in January. So a big few months ahead for the Pudgy Penguin project.
Yeah, definitely the biggest winner out of the NFT boom. And I even see that they're within striking distance of flipping CryptoPunks.
Really?
Which would be, I think, a huge landmark. I'm not sure whether that also says now that they're on Solana and they're going to maybe, but at the end of the day, huge amount of maybe focus going into some of these NFT ecosystems, and that's also a signal maybe of, hey, that NFT bottom kind of a bit over, and some of the projects now are starting to kind of reap the rewards here. But we forget all the ones that have lost, and it's always good to see the ones that succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you mentioned BlackRock just a few minutes ago. I know in the overrated, underrated segment, I see they're also listed here. Yeah,
I couldn't help myself to talk about this actually. That's how underappreciated I thought this was in the market. But they come out and started to actually suggest a 2% Bitcoin allocation to its clients. This is a huge deal because this idea of starting at 1%, and as you said, getting up 0% was the big deal. Now we're probably so comfortable with BlackRock recommending Bitcoin.
Yeah, wow.
Now the focus is just them increasing that allocation percentage. So 2% now is what they're recommending for investors to consider. Huge, growth here. And I think people underestimate the passive buying of the likes of BlackRock, suggesting it to their clients, because these are the things that we just don't really see day to day. We see some of the ETF numbers, but we don't see the relentless amount of Fidelity clients or BlackRock clients that are working together to buy Bitcoin as a hedge in their portfolios. So huge, I think, change here. I'm really going to be testing in 2025 whether we start to see this number creep up to 3%. I think Bitwise said that 3% is the new 1%, and we're starting to see, BlackRock start to actually move in that direction.
Yeah, no, it's a pinch yourself moment in that regard, seeing those sorts of headlines. My one for this week will be underappreciated. I think people have been talking about these AI projects, so they've been front and center of attention, but I still think they're being underappreciated when you're looking at even announcements today that I saw that all of a sudden AI 16Z, which has been sort of the pioneer in a way with Goatius Maximus of this new trend of AI agent protocols and networks, AI 16Z gone from inception, like 4 months ago, to growing and being number one trending on GitHub globally across all sectors, not just crypto. And now today, actually partnering with Stanford University. And from my understanding, I haven't fully read through the announcement, but from my understanding, it's sort of this collaborative opportunity for students at Stanford to, I guess, learn and be part of an education program that teaches them about, I guess, what AI16Z and more broadly, what AI agents deployed on blockchains can do. And yeah, as we said earlier, Solana really pushing AI adoption. Coinbase has been big on pushing blockchain and AI adoption. So yeah, I guess underappreciated in the sense, sometimes even it surprises me, Nick, in terms of 4 months or even 3 months, something going from zero to partnering with Stanford University.
And there's a really good chart on the Artemis dashboard, which shows the AI tokens led the market in March, and they were the outperformers, but then they really struggled to get a lot of attention, and meme coins started to generate a lot of the attention in that November all-time high rally. This is starting to change now, as we've seen a lot of the uptick, but probably a movement that I'm anticipating to continue next year.
Yeah, nice tease for our 2025 sort of look aheads. But yeah, it was a really big week, honestly. And when you sort of think the market would start to quieten down heading to the end of the year, crypto surprises with a really eventful week, and here we are at all-time highs. So it's a time to celebrate, of course, through a tough bear market, but also be conscious of the fact that it very likely is not going to last forever. So yeah, through Collective Shift, we'll take you through the ups and the downs with our content. So the best place to even just get a taste of what we do here is to subscribe to our free weekly newsletter straight to your inbox every Friday, providing free weekly market insights. So you can subscribe to that at collectiveshift.io/newsletter. That's collectiveshift.io/newsletter.